Getting to 10% body fat over 40 may seem impossible, but I'm here to tell you it absolutely can be done. In fact, I went from looking like this in my 30s to getting the leanest I've ever been in my 40s. The thing is, there's two main things that make it harder as you get older. Your metabolism slows down, and you just don't recover the way you used to. So today I'm going to show you how you can solve both problems to get shredded in 4 simple steps. Okay, first things first, let's address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about metabolism, because we all know the older you get, the more your metabolism slows down. And you know what? I actually have some good news for you. Even though, yes, your metabolism does slow down, it's probably not anywhere near as much as you think, and there's some things you can do to prevent this from happening. Research has shown you only lose about 1 to 2% on your metabolism per decade, and the majority of that has been shown to basically be all through loss of lean body mass. Research has also shown if you equate for lean body mass, you actually don't see any slowdowns in metabolism until about 60 years old. So knowing how important lean body mass is, it actually becomes pretty simple. You need to focus on building muscle. So that brings me to step 1, the strength training side of things. Not only does this help keep and even build metabolism, but it's crucial to create the body composition you're looking for. Let's be honest, it's not really the 10% body fat that matters. You're trying to create a look that's associated with 10% body fat, and that's that lean, shredded, muscular look. But the thing is, as you get older, you can't necessarily go as hard and just crush it the way you could in your 20s. So you have to focus a bit more on recovery and working with your body. So I find as you get older, it's usually better to stay away from too heavy of lifting, still making sure you're trading close to failure and keeping good form. But research has shown you can still build muscle on as little as 30% of your 1 rep max. So you don't need to go heavy to build, and the heavier you go, the more susceptible you are to injury. This doesn't mean you shouldn't ever do heavy training, especially if you like it. It just probably shouldn't be the foundation of your training. So I recommend keeping your rep range around 8 to 15 reps for the majority of your training, and then you can sprinkle in some heavier and even lighter work into that. And I also recommend to optimize muscle building. You train 4 to 5 days per week, at least 3 days, hitting each muscle group twice per week. Now, step 2 is about the nutrition side of things and sticking with the importance of keeping your metabolism in as good a spot as possible. Protein is what builds muscle, so you want to make sure you're getting plenty of protein in. Now, typically I recommend around 1 gram per pound, whatever your goal weight might be. However, as you get older, there's something called anabolic resistance to protein, so you need more protein to get the same anabolic response you would have if you were in your 20s or 30s, especially after the age of 50. So when you're over 40, I recommend more like 1.2 grams per pound of whatever your goal weight might be. And some good sources of high protein foods without a lot of calories are things like skinless chicken and turkey breast, egg whites, fish like tilapia and canned tuna, shrimp and mini seafoods, non-fat Greek yogurt, leaner beef like 93.7 or 94.6, and a whey protein isolate. Another way you can help keep your metabolism in a better spot is making sure you're breaking up your diet and not staying in a calorie deficit too long. So you do this taking what's called a diet break. We go back to maintenance. I recommend this around every 4 to 6 weeks and taking 1, preferably 2 weeks, where you bring your calories back up, cut your cardio down in roughly half. So while I recommend these no matter what, I think they become even more important when you get over 40. And similarly, when you do go into your calorie deficit, you want to make sure you're not losing weight too fast. This will make sure you keep your metabolism up, you don't lose too much muscle, and your recovery will be better. So while I typically say don't lose more than about 1% of your weight on average, I think a bit slower of a pace is better over 40. So I'd recommend more like 0.5 to 0.7% of your weight on average. And I usually find to do this about a 15 to 20% calorie deficit with a little extra cardio will usually put you roughly in that place, which, speaking of activity, that brings me to step number 3 with regards to cardio and your activity outside the gym. Activity is honestly a big reason why it probably feels like your metabolism slows down more as you get older. And you probably noticed it as you get older, it gets easier and easier to gain weight, but we've already looked at how metabolism doesn't drop that much. So what does happen? You get less active, you get more responsibilities, you don't have as much energy to be running around. I remember when I was younger, I was playing baseball, basketball, flag football, racquetball. I used to love hit cardio. I just can't do that anymore, or I'm gonna pay the price. So when you get older, forms of lower intensity cardio can be much more beneficial, which is why I personally like regular walking for the extra activity and cardio. Now you can do some other things like stationary bike, elliptical, and things that are easier on the joints, but personally I like walking. But I have a video that covers how many steps you should be taking to get to 10% body fat, because it kind of depends on your own situation. But for the purpose of this video, I usually say between about 7 to 10,000 steps per day is a good place to start. Now, step 4 is far and away the most underrated aspect to getting to 10% body fat. Do not skip this. Please pay attention. It is way more important than you think. You need to make sure you're getting enough sleep and controlling stress levels. There's plenty of research showing lack of sleep can cause a slowing of your metabolic rate. You lose less fat and lose more muscle while in a calorie deficit. You have decreased muscle protein synthesis and higher calorie consumption consumption has been associated with lack of sleep as well. Higher stress levels cause an increase in the hormone cortisol, which has a whole host of negative physiological aspects to it, not the least of which it can actually have a fat loss blunting effect. It'll make you more susceptible to injury, mood will drop, not to mention increased stress makes you more likely to go off plan, keeping you from getting the results you want. So make sure you're getting at least 7, preferably 8 hours of sleep, and taking strategies to minimize stress. Obviously, you can't control what happens to you in your life, but remember, you do have control over how you respond to the stressful situation. So always stop and ask yourself, what can I do about it, and focus on what you have control over. Now, I mentioned that walking is super helpful, especially over 40 when it comes to reaching 10% body fat, but how much you should do does depend. So make sure you check out this video up top next that covers how much to do and some great strategies to easily get more steps in, and I'll see you in that other video.